Welcome back, folks. This is episode 196. It's about payroll, and we have an amazing guest tonight. And before I intro our guest, how you doing, Walt?
Man, I'm blessed. Happy to be here, man. I'm looking forward to getting to know our guest tonight and learning more about him and what he
Likewise.
brings in his business. But I'm good, man. How about you?
I'm doing amazing, man. Thank
Good, man.
you. So without further ado, let's intro our guest. His name is Terrence Wright, and we're joined by a true people first leader with over 2 decades of experience helping organizations. Terrence Wright is the founder of Wright People Solutions and a seasoned HR executive who has held leadership roles with global brands like Google, Synchrony, and GE Capital. No, throughout his career, he's helped companies build high-performing cultures, develop leaders, and solve the real-world challenges that come with hiring, retaining, and growing top talent. Terrence believes that great businesses are built by the right people in the right roles. Yes, sir. And HR done well isn't just an administrative function, it's a competitive advantage. And today he partners with organizations to evolve their people strategy, strengthen leadership, and create workplaces where both employees and businesses can thrive. We're excited to dig into his journey, his insights on what companies get right and wrong about talent, and why investing in your people is the smartest business decision you can make. Please welcome to the show, Terrence Wright.
Wow. Thank you so much for that introduction. And gosh, when I hear that, I have to pinch myself a couple of times 'cause I'm thinking like, what are you talking about?
No
And
doubt.
then I have to remember, yeah, that was me in a former life that all those things were occurring and now transition into this new walk of life. So I appreciate the intro and I appreciate the invite to come on and talk with you guys tonight.
Sure. Love that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I came across each other in work networks and just hit it off. And I was like, oh man, you got to come on the show. We got to talk. I knew you would get, I was like really enjoying approaching I was like, oh man, I just felt so relaxed about being able to talk tonight. Cause some guests you don't know. And a lot of times this is the first time we interact with some of our guests.
Right.
So but I was just so relaxed approaching it. I was looking forward to it. And so thanks for joining us. And before we get into all the questions and stuff, me and Walt always try to do some small talk and catch up on current events around payroll mostly. So,
Yeah.
Walt, what you got for us?
It's the day after Super Bowl, so I wanted to talk
Yeah,
about,
Sick Monday,
yeah,
they call it. Super Sick
Yeah.
Monday.
so I wanted to talk about the refs and their pay, right? And how
Okay,
they're taxed. And
interesting.
they're similar to the athletes who are, I think they call it, the term is jock tax, where they're taxed where they play.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Same thing for the
Yes.
refs, right? So they tax where they
Oh,
perform
really?
or they work at, right? So if they work at a game in Cali, they're going to get taxed over there. If the one's on the East Coast, they're going to tax in the East Coast city or whatever, right? If they're applicable. So their average salary is during the regular season is almost $250,000, correct? Yeah.
Ooh,
And they
dang.
get nice bonuses for Super Bowls and playoffs and stuff like that. So they get between
Shoot.
30 to 50K in bonuses for us. Yeah. So I just
Dang.
thought it was an interesting little nugget just to add.
And that's a good career. Gosh, man, like you could try to to ascend to be a ref in the professional arena is a good. And if they making that for the year, and you ain't got to work the whole year, ain't but 18 weeks of NFL, maybe what 21 if you go all the way to the
Mhm.
Super Bowl. If you
Yeah.
happen to be a ref that goes into the playoffs,
Yeah.
Yeah, I found something interesting that we're talking about refs. Like most of them actually have second jobs in a sense, and most of them,
why not?
or
Yeah.
at least at a certain period of time. I don't know if you are familiar with one, Ed Hockley.
Yes.
He was one of the famous refs that used to be involved, like muscular at that. He was actually an attorney
Oh,
as well.
dang.
Yeah, and if you do some research on it, I believe a couple of them during the off season, they're working on their businesses. So some of them are actually entrepreneurs like us as
Wow.
well. They have the luxury to work 6 months in the NFL and then work 6 months with their business. So that was something interesting that I found out as well.
Well,
That's
dropping
awesome.
nuggets, right?
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, for real. Look at
Now,
that.
I was
Now, mine was a little disturbing to say the least, and it reminded me of a conversation we had the other day, Walt, when we were talking about what was it, FedEx or UPS, about the like
yeah,
layoffs or something that they had, and um, how tough it was, even though they make
yeah,
billions of dollars. So I'm doing research, trying to find some good news to share, and I came across the U.S. Post Office and their revenue and payroll numbers. And so the U.S. Post Office in 2025 spent $43 billion in payroll. And if you know the numbers like we do, the rule of thumb is you can double that to guesstimate the company's total gross revenue. Sure enough, they made 80 billion but spent a total of 89 billion for a $9 billion loss for the year. So it's just like the numbers are like just shocking. And you think about you go into the post office, 'cause I still go into the post office sometimes, and I'm just like, this place is run down. They haven't changed it since 1984. What are y'all doing? And shame, but what are you doing to spend all this money and you're not doing a thing, really? Like, you're not, no facelifts, no rebranding, no efficiencies, and it's just come on. And I just thought the numbers were, and it made me think about what you were talking about with the having to lay people off, even though you gross billions of dollars. Like, where is the efficiencies? Where is the rehaul of things, the overhaul of things, and especially at the post office, because there's always that argument now: should it go private? Should Amazon take over? Because I go order something and it'll be here in 3 hours. What are we doing? Just an interesting nugget, nothing too crazy or mind blowing about payroll, but that it just stuck out that the post office spends so much in payroll and it's still 9 billion. Ooh, we lost. Oh, there you go. But yeah. Anywho, let's move on, man. Our first,
Before we move on, Brian, you
yes,
actually mentioned, and it got me thinking about like how you talked about from an OpEx perspective, they don't spend much on updating the facilities. And if you think about the fleets, right, the vehicles aren't necessarily up to
ones.
date on
Nope,
code or anything like that.
nope.
But what's interesting I find about that is, and I haven't done the research on this, but now I'm curious about the retention rate of employees there.
Hmm?
Think about at least some of the conversations that I have with people from time to time, even when the male person comes by the house, they've been very tenured there, obviously. And so it makes you think about what's in the culture that makes people stay. And even in a sense, I'm aging myself here, but like how Big Mama or Mama would say, you need to go and get a job at the post office,
Yes.
right? Because there was something about, hey, if you stayed at the post office for
Yep.
15, 20 years, you got a great
mhm.
pension on top of that. And so
Yep.
I'm curious about what's the culture actually like for people to bear down and say, hey, I'm going to stick it out. And when I get to year 20, then I have a good pension setup. So it's just when you were talking about that, it just started making me think about culture
And
and
they,
what are the
yep.
things that make people stay.
I think so. The article, and I got to remember to share it in the show notes. It went on to start rattle off salaries, how the top guy makes over 300K a year. Then it went down to the next tier at 200K, and it said over 20,000 of employees are making over 100K. And I actually have family in the post office, and what I can tell you is I got an uncle now that he retired already, but circle back on a part-time gig for as in the post office in a small community and gets back in it on the part-time after he officially retired, which there's nothing illegal about it because you can do it according to the laws and the stuff like that. But just to your point, I think it's an easy job for the most part and well paying. So with the cultures, yeah, it's a good question, but I know that. And then his daughter followed suit, and same thing. 20 years later, still in it. So
Yeah.
it's definitely something that has that stickiness. And I remember too, same here, like when I graduated from high school, everybody was like, oh, go take the government jobs and city tests. And then I was like, get out, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to be a millionaire. That had I known it was going to take me 20 years to get to this point, I could have done both.
Yeah.
Right? I could have been retired from the 20-year government job and then still open my business right in the same time. Come on, man.
We need time machines, Brian. We need time
Yes.
machines.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody has
Oh
to
my
invent a time machine.
Please. Yeah, good stuff. Thank you for jumping in there. I love that. And so our first thing is really always origin story, right? How'd you
Yeah.
get into HR? And then what brought you to the point where for you is very unique where, big names that you worked for and then said, okay, I'm going to leave these mega billion companies and do my own thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a journey that I remind myself about each day, especially as an entrepreneur now, when you think about the ebbs and flows of how business works when you are the one that's generating business. But I'll start back and I won't do a far, far time ago, George Lucas and Star Wars, anything like that. But I'll tell you, I actually came out of college going to be a school teacher.
Wow.
I taught school actually for 3 years, 5th grade. And I think things happen by happenstance, whether you're religious or faithful or anything like that. And I knew long term that unfortunately working in the education system wasn't going to help me achieve the wealth that I hoped for. But it actually started with a conversation that I was having at a parent teacher conference with a student's parent who just in the middle of our conversation, as I'm sitting there sharing the story with how their son, they're doing well in class, but if they could just focus on these things, we're going through that checklist, if you will. And the parent just abruptly told me like, hey, like, what are you doing here? And I was like, whoa, like,
What does that mean?
What am I doing here? And he was like, it's obvious you know your stuff. When I listen to my son, he tells me all the time that you encourages them to look outside of the four walls of the classroom. So I got to ask you, like, what are you doing here? And it really was a thought-provoking moment that I had to say, oh my gosh, like, here I am encouraging the students often, like, dream big, think outside of the four walls of the classroom. And it really was a reflective question for myself. All right, Terrence, what are you doing? It really stuck with me for a couple of days, couple of weeks, till it got to the point that it was eating at me so much. I said, you know what? I need to think about what's next. Yes, I'm fresh out of undergrad, but what's really next? Am I really going to be doing this for the next 40 years? And the answer was no. And so I ended up going back to get a graduate degree. And now how I fell into HR was the thing of enjoyed working with people. I enjoyed the relationship I had with students. And so the initial thought was, oh, I'll go back to school and be a corporate trainer. Like that way I'll be in the business space. Back then we called it corporate training, but in today's terms, we call it like L&D, right?
Yeah.
And so I thought I would go back and initially do that. And so ended up enrolling back in school and got a graduate degree in organizational management. And happenstance happens when I bump into a gentleman that is still a great friend today. In fact, he's a chief people officer now, who actually gave me my first HR job. And literally, I'm walking into the elevator, he's walking out of the elevator, and we bump into each other. And he says, Terrence, I don't know why I didn't think about this, but I have a role. Would you be interested in it? And so I tell people all the time, sometimes it's just luck in a sense, right? It's being in the right place at the right time. And so went interviewed for the role, got the role, and I started off as an HR recruiter for a cable company. And that's what led me to the path of going to some of these bigger name companies. So did that, ended up relocating. And so doing the circuit, like so many people, worked all these great jobs, had just tons of experience. And then it got to the point where I would say about in 2024, where I really started feeling like something was missing. I always do things intentionally, Brian and Walt. There's always a strategic plan of things that I'm doing. And it started getting to the point where the first signal was I was helping a friend set up a business.
Nice.
So I'm up here
Fun.
giving advice. Here's all the
Yep.
things you need to do. She has her business, and then I'm walking away saying, wait a second, I got to go back to work. She's about to start a business. So I'm going back. And it just really stuck out that it started again bothering me. The fact of I always knew I wanted to do HR consulting. It started to be a bigger bug to say, hey, I want to go and do this on my own. Into last year, it just got to the point where I was exposed to all of this big strategy that was taking place, whether it was at Google or Synchrony and these other places. And I really started thinking about, wouldn't it be great if small, medium-sized businesses had access to this? Now, corporations, from the standpoint, they give back. You can come in, but it's very generic stuff, right? It's,
Mhm.
hey, you could do this if you set up this, right? There's not a defined strategy that takes place. And so it really just started harping on me that there's a lot of people that are taking a chance on themselves to run a business. And small, medium-sized businesses, what I think the numbers are like, close to 85,
80% of
90%
yes. Oh,
run this
yes.
economy, right? And
Yes.
so you think about the opportunity there where a lot of these businesses, they don't have a strategic HR partner. You know who they have, Brian and Walt? They have their sister-in-law running
Yep.
payroll, or they
Yep.
have their sister-in-law
Yep.
trying to figure out to do HR, but it's very transactional HR.
Yep.
There's nothing there that's going to help the business grow and scale. So what happens to the
Yeah.
CEO? They're now stuck in all of this people trying to figure out what to do when they should be focused on running a business. And so that's
right.
really where the concept of Wright People Solutions came from.
I love it.
Wow. So let me ask you more about Wright People Solutions.
Mhm.
What is your mission and your core focus? And what do you say makes you different from other business consulting firms?
Well, first of all, and that's a great question. Well, I would say, first of all, our mission is to bring these big corporate strategies to small, medium-sized businesses to help them grow and thrive, right? So that's the mission tagline, not word, but ultimately the mission there. And I'm sorry, the second part of that question was again, what?
It is what makes your
What makes me different? So here's what I'll tell you. It's the experience level. It's where I've necessarily been, because here's the thing. You talk to any HR consultant, they're going to tell you, I'm going to help the business solve a problem. And that's ultimately what we're there for. That's ultimately what any consultant is there for, is to solve a problem in a sense. What makes you different and unique is, one, have you been thrown into the fire where you can react to something immediately and not have to go to Chat GPT or call up a friend and say, hey, I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm an HR consultant, but I really should be doing this. If you think about, that's where the big game experience comes into place. I wasn't making a business decision for 10 or 15 people. I was sitting in rooms making business decisions for workforces over 1,000 people that I had primary responsibility. We can add to that. In some
Wow.
cases, I had 2,500 people. And so I knew the things that were at stake. I knew how to systemically think about, okay, if we go down this path and make this decision, here's all the other ripple effects that are going to, and here's all the other things that we should be thinking about from a strategy standpoint. So not being very transactional, but being transformative is what I would say sets me apart from other folks. Now, I can go in and do, if you just want an employee handbook, that's very transactional.
Mhm.
But when you think about delivering that employee handbook, are you thinking about the rollout? What if you have employees that don't necessarily agree with all the policies and procedures? What do you necessarily do then? Does the handbook really align with where you want to go over the next 3 to 5 years? All of these questions, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to be probing you on these things, and you should have responses to them. If you don't have responses to them, that's why you need a strategic HR partner.
Yep. The owners ain't thinking about that.
No, they're not. Right, no. And they'll tell you like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. I need to hire you. Yeah, that's pretty much one.
Yep. I'll send you my invoice.
Yeah. Here's my billable hours.
You
We'll
go.
back.
No doubt. So, with that in mind, what are the top 3 ways businesses can help support one another?
I think the top 3 ways, take it from the perspective of even just us engaging, right? I think
Yeah.
one thing is clear: no business, no one person can do much by themselves, right? I think it was an
Mhm.
old Steve Jobs quote that says, if you want to get somewhere fast, you get people together and you move forward and you get there fast. If you do it by yourself, you're gonna spend all day. But I
Yep.
think key things for businesses in general is to have conversations, whether it's like this, conversations around the table, and talk about what is the environment, what's impacting us in the environment today that we have concerns about, um, who has access to what resources necessarily, and how do I
Mm.
become part of those conversations to engage, and then ultimately, where am I strong at that you may not necessarily be strong in that window, but you're stronger in somewhere else. So how do we think about systemically working together to improve our strengths? When I think about industries like private label credit cards, right? Working in that space. Listen, we were only as good as, number one, the clients that had us from a client perspective, but also we needed to understand what did we need to do outside of that realm to make sure not only were we taking care of the clients, but we were also taking care of the employees internally, right? So having that focus on, if we build the right culture internally in the organization, that will reflect what our relationships will be with our best, our small, even to our smallest, to our largest clients at that standpoint. So I think really having the opportunity to work with businesses to understand what's the external environment, but then what is the internal environment that helps your company be who they are.
Wow. Love that answer. Love that answer. So, Terrence, how do you help businesses transition from HR as a rule book function to HR as a partner that directly impacts their business performance?
Yeah. So I actually have an approach that I call from policing to partnership. And I haven't gotten this trademarked yet, so shame
Do
on
you
me
get
for
it
not
done?
hurry up and getting this done.
Mm.
But how we go about it is really a 4-step process. In any relationship that I intend to have with an organization, we start off by needing to do an assessment. So phase 1 for us is we got to assess what's going on inside. You may tell me this is what you need, but you're telling me from the standpoint of pain. You're telling me from the standpoint of emotion, right? And sometimes when we're acting in those states, we're not seeing necessarily the entire picture. And plus, you're not the HR person, right? You are a smart business owner in X discipline, right? And so what we do is we come in and help them understand and make sure they have the right foundation in place, right? No pun intended. And that's where we're doing a strong operational due diligence that may require us to do an audit. And once we've done that audit, we're now creating this 90-day roadmap. So instead of saying, hey, here's your handbook, good luck to you, goodbye, and we're moving off, we're saying, hey, here's the gaps that you have in your organization. And we're doing this within the first 2 to 3 weeks that we're with them.
Wow.
And at the end of that third week, we're saying, now here's a roadmap to help you address these things. So once we show them those findings, we then move into phase 2, which is our design part, right? So we got to get them to buy in first on the initial
Mm.
roadmap. Then we're now co-partnering with them or members of their senior team to say, okay, what does this need to look like for X company? Let's start designing what we want the end to necessarily look like. So we start designing what this roadmap is going to officially look like and how we're going to activate it. Once we get into we're good with the design, we finalize the design. Now it's time for the activation part. And this is where, Brian and Wall, I would actually look at companies like yours to say, here's the opportunity now for us to calibrate on things. Because what we may notice in the design of the roadmap is the payroll system's antiquated, or you have
Mhm.
your senior rock star running payroll every week,
Mhm.
sitting there for the last person to clock in, clock out, sitting there hoping everybody put their punches in.
I got CEOs running payroll.
Yeah. So you have this person
Yeah.
chasing everyone, and guess what they're not doing? They're not helping you bring the business along. So we now have to put people systems in place to say, okay, where do we find opportunities to outsource or to bring in an organization like Payroll Universe to help mitigate some of this pain? And if we do this, here's what your immediate value is going to be. Your people leader is now focused on helping drive the business and help arrange a culture. So you're now starting
Yeah.
to see immediate value take place in the process, because that is the biggest gap that I think CEOs have right now, or at least small business owners have right now, is they can't see what is the immediate value of bringing in an HR consultant. So what
Yep.
we have to do is we have to remove the risk. So we remove the risk, right, as part of the assessment. The next thing we have to do is now show them the speed. Now that we've put these systems in place, here's the speed. Here's how people are able to react and do what they need to do now, and then pull them out simultaneously in out of the decision matrix, right? They no longer need to be pulled necessarily into the day to day, because we are now setting up these people systems to where we have structure in place. Everybody now has clarity on their role and what they're necessarily going to do. And we're farming out the resources or the processes that no longer make sense, that's causing the lag in your organization growing and scaling. And then the last part of that is, after we've activated, is the ongoing support. So my organization, or I'm sorry, my business, we do monthly retainers. So after we've done all of that, we've established a partnership with you, we've established a relationship with you. You could either say, hey, I would love for you to stay on, right, as our HR partner, or we can make recommendations, whether it's, okay, maybe we need to bring in a junior HR resource. You don't necessarily need a VP of
Senior,
HR, a
yeah.
senior director of HR at that point. But for those organizations that are beyond the growth part, that are at the scale part, we will play in that space definitely.
Nice. Love it. So perfect segue. When that organization is ready for that full-time junior, what does hiring the right person matter so much beyond skills and experience?
Gosh, well, I think, and you guys may have seen this, or just because you're in a similar discipline, you make the wrong hiring decision, that's costing you about 2 times salary
Oh my
of
gosh,
the
yep.
person that you're looking to bring in. So not only are you looking at it from a cost perspective, but now you have to look at what the human tax is. And what I mean by the human tax, that role remains vacant. Guess who's picking that up? Your existing workforce. They're already stretched in, they're already burnt out, they're already doing all of these things. And so that's the true cost of not making the right hiring decision. How you go about making the right hiring decision, and hopefully I'll do my recruiting partners some justice here, but you really have to sit down and make sure you have a clear picture of understanding what the organization goals are from a high level. So let's start at the 50,000 foot level, right? How are you attracting the right candidates to come in to your organization? And you have to do that with branding, right? Your branding has to be strong in the workplace, right? Who else helps you with that branding? Your internal culture right now. If you have people that are happy at the organization that you're at, they're going out telling people like, hey,
Yep.
we got an opening here. I think you'll be a great
Mhm.
fit for it. Who doesn't love referrals in that sense? And that's another angle that you can necessarily take. But the
Oh, they get
key,
mad and bash you online,
yeah, exactly. But the
right?
key is you just got to have a structured interview process. And what that necessarily looks like is, one, do you have a clear job description that aligns to what the organization needs, first and foremost? The second part of that is, what does that question structure necessarily look like? Third, you need to make sure that the people that you are pulling into the interview process can do it in an unbiased way, with the
Mm,
understanding that the weight of the responsibility of them bringing somebody into this organization has implications if they don't get it right. And then the last part of it is, if you do not have a onboarding system that is structured very well to where at day one, everything is working. Person has their laptop, if they're this type of worker, or
mhm.
their workstation is already set up. They've talked to the IT person to get their password situated. They're doing their direct deposits, turning in that I-9, all of those things. And then you're laying on, hey, who's coming to say hello to them? Do you have a onboarding buddy for them? Has the manager come to greet them on day one if they're in orientation all day? If it's a small business, did the senior director or the CEO make them feel welcome? Did they go
Mm-hmm.
by and say hello to them? You do all of these things within the first 30, 60, 90 days. You now have somebody that's bought in to the culture that you place. If that person doesn't feel that within the first 30, 60, 90 days, they're gone. And you're starting the cycle all over again. So now you're looking at, what's my time to fill this position? What's the cost of hire again? And now you just doubled that because you didn't follow through on what you needed to commit to.
Wow, this is perfect segue, man. I'm loving this because you're definitely dropping a lot of knowledge for this.
Yep.
I'm really appreciating this. So, how should companies balance the cultural fit versus the skill fit, especially in a competitive labor market, in your opinion?
So I would say it depends, but I'm gonna lean heavily on the skill side for just a moment, depending on what the organization is. So if it's a startup, you need the skills. You gotta have people that can come in. If you're building the latest
Interesting.
AI tool out there, you gotta hire in from a skill standpoint, right? Go back and take a look at the numbers. You'll probably see more chaos in a startup because they're scrappy, right? They're like, hey, we got to get going. We got to get speed to market very quickly. If you have a mature organization, you have a little bit more luxury because your product is already out there. People know who your product is. Your product is good for what it is. You now can say, I need to make sure that I find a person that fits our culture, because we can teach them the job that we need. As long as they have the aptitude to necessarily do it, we could teach them that component. But if you're talking about bringing in somebody that's an AI agent or something like that, no, I'm not teaching you this. I'm bringing you in because I need you to do this right now because we need to get this tool out and running. So you're
Yep.
going to see, you can have a case of two organizations, one mature and one startup, and they can be going after completely different things, and that's okay because of where
Okay.
they are in the employee and where they are in the organizational life cycle. Okay.
I like that. I haven't heard an HR pro say that, because I meet ones that are so hell bent on one thing or another, not usually flexible to the startup of it all. Because that startup space is crazy.
Yeah.
So if you can't flex in that startup space, then you're not gonna have startup clients.
Well,
You're
listen,
not,
you have to move
right?
quickly. They don't want to hear about, oh, we're going to do these strategic initiatives that are going to take place 9 to 12 months from now. No, what are you going to do for me within the next 30 days? I have a potential client that I'm working with right now that's going through some M&A, but they're operating as a scrappy startup. And so what I'm pitching to them is, hey, we need to make sure we get the right human capital in right now to help you do this so you can carry your business on. We can figure out culture and stuff along the way. That's not ideally how you want to do it, but if you want to get this product moving fast, we need to go out there and do specific targets, recruiting targets for these
Get it
particular
done.
skills, and
That
bring
makes
these
sense.
individuals in, and then risk accept the understanding that we might make a couple of bad decisions in here, right? But again, once you start to solidify that foundation, you can then start to say, okay, how do we course correct this now? Because again, founder is not going to want to hear the pie in the sky. What's the initiatives 12 months from now? They're going to be like, how are you going to solve this problem that I have right now? And they need you to do it within the next 30 days. And you have to, as a HR person, you have to be scrappy enough to understand that. And Brian, you had said something. I didn't want to let this thought go by. I would say to both of you, do your own research the next time you're talking to like HR consultants or HR professionals. Ask yourself, do they really understand the business? And this is so powerful is because if you don't understand the business as a HR business partner, as a HR professional or the industry in general, 9 times out of 10, you're going to fail and you're not going to
Yep.
build that relationship that you'll. If I can't explain to you your business, then how can I help you if I don't know and can't speak your language? If I don't know what's
Yep.
keeping you up at night or what's frustrating you at this point in time right now, how can I come in and really help you if I don't understand that? And as an HR person, I have to understand that before the intake call. When I have clients that I talk to before they come to the intake call, I'm already trying to do some research, right? Let my
Nice.
assumptions be this until I hear what they have to say. But if they ask me for their opinion on something and I need to give them something, not just some pie in the sky answer, something with some substance,
Mhm.
that's automatically building my credibility with.
Yep. I see it even with payroll. Sorry to
Yeah,
harp
you
on
got
this, but it's what there are payroll pros that also don't get it as far because payroll folks could be very righteous in our policies and procedures and compliance, and it's accurate, but it may not be applicable or realistic for small businesses who are trying to run lean and focused to do certain things, and they're okay with the risk at some levels.
right.
And we as consultants have to be okay with that. If not, then we're in, like you said, we're in the wrong business. And shout out to our colleague Max Vanderkis Busink, because he says payroll folks have to have a good business acumen, right?
Yes.
If you're gonna be good at payroll, you have to have that good business. Like you have to, like you just said, you have to understand the business.
Yeah.
That's a good call out. Yeah.
Oh, you, bro.
It's on me. Oh, all right. So, switching gears, how do companies' ability to evolve in process, mindset, or culture, and maybe not switching gears, we're right on here, influence its ability to attract and retain talent?
So I'll bring it to, I think what we're facing in the near term right now, around just the workforce. Randstad just put out a workforce monitor report for 2026, which I would encourage anyone to read it because it gives you a really good sense of the landscape of what employees want. And no different from the correlation, I think, from last year is that employees still want flexibility. They still want to know that they have a path within the organization. And what I mean by that is even whether it's vertical or a linear type career. And where I believe, based on this information, that companies will face either a tough uphill if they don't adapt, is to the chances of them losing top talent. Something that I talk with potential clients and even current clients that I have right now often is, how am I thinking about my entire workforce? But how am I thinking about those individuals that I see promise and potential in? How am I thinking about making sure that their appetite is satisfied with learning the business, being able to grow into this business? That's one hand. On the other hand, I'm thinking about, what is the technology that I need to infuse to make sure it's supporting that growth and that learning? Because regardless of what people say about artificial intelligence, it's here. It's only going to enhance our productivity. It's only going to enhance our productivity. And I'll say that one more time, only going to enhance our productivity. Maybe not in my lifetime or our lifetimes. I don't think Skynet is going to be putting robots in these workplaces, right? We all know that Elon is building robots and that type of thing, but it's not going to get to that point. What I tell people often is, with artificial intelligence, you still need human intelligence, right? So
Yeah.
how are we training our workforce to manage the tools of AI? how are we implementing it into the organization? And where the most dangerous thing that I see right now is that you have people that are clearly scared of it, and you have people who think they're comfortable with it, but they're using it like Google search or Bing search. That is not using AI tools effectively. You need to get in, you need to understand it, you need to challenge it, you need to call BS when it gives you a hallucinating data, all of those things. Small, medium-sized business owners don't have time to really think about all of those things. And that's why you need consultants who are playing in this space right now that understand the power of these tools and the potential of what it could do for your organization, not only from a workflow perspective, but how your workforce needs to use and leverage these tools to help them continue to fulfill the intrinsic behavior, which is I want to grow with this company, but you need to feed me this information. So I know that was a lot, but I wanted to really hit that angle is because that's how organizations need to start thinking about how am I going to make sure that I am satisfying the appetite of my workforce in order to retain them? How am I thinking about from a succession planning standpoint, if my top ace leaves today because they have won the Powerball, will my operation still run?
Mm.
If the answer is no, guess who they should call? Me.
Wright People Solutions.
Yeah. Man.
Yep. I love it.
All right. So, in terms of leadership and from a business standpoint, how important is the communication piece, and what does that play in keeping those right people once they have them?
Yeah. I'm going to throw this question at both of you. And I just want you to think back for a moment, because I don't think we've all been entrepreneurs all our lives, but we have been in a situation where we have been a W-2 employee and there has been that one manager, boss, leader that we think about often that we say we will walk through the wall for them if they ever needed anything. And we also have that one situation where we're like, I don't
Oh,
care if the building was burning,
Word.
I'm running in there to get. So I'll start off with what I think is key. And I am so complimentary of this organization. Of course, I worked there probably for most of my career, but Synchrony Financial, they really have a good DNA.
Wow.
Everybody may not agree with it, just depending on what your experience has been. But because I've been part of the leadership there and helping drive that culture to be a great place to work, I think they finished this year in the top 5, if I'm not mistaken, on the Forbes Great Places to Work.
Dang.
They've been very consistent for the past few years. And why that works for that organization and can work for other organizations is because they're very transparent. When they ask for feedback from their line workers, they are listening. And they're not just listening as part of lip service. They're listening and then they're turning around and doing something about it. And when they are designing what they're going to do about it, guess who's involved in it? The people that gave that feedback. That's one thing. Another thing is when you understand the value of your employee, where you don't have to personally talk. I don't need to be in Walt's business for everything personally, what he's doing Saturday nights and all of those things. But if I'm developing a relationship with Walt, because I know he has a daughter per se, and she's about to graduate from high school, and you have a daughter that graduated from high school, now you can relate and talk about, I know the pride that you're feeling right now about your daughter graduating, especially her being your oldest child. And I remember what you went through with her 3 years ago when she wasn't feeling her greatest, but she did X, Y, and Z. And now look at her. When you start having conversations like that, when you are listening to your employees, why would I want to think about leaving?
Yeah.
Why would I want to think about going somewhere else when this person genuinely cares about how I am doing in the workplace. He didn't promise me anything. He didn't promise anything like a promotion or anything like that, right? He didn't make that type of promise. What he promised to do was to create a space where I feel like I can bring my best self to work and I can thrive. You will find more success in an employee willing and wanting to stay in that environment versus someone that is very trained. Just like we talked about earlier, Brian, like when we had that call, hey, it felt like we were sitting across the table from each other on A1A down in South Florida, having a nice umbrella drink and just catching, shooting the breeze. And that's how it is right now. When you could build relationships with people like that, you still have the credibility. You still don't have to worry about losing well, I'm the leader. And no, you could lead in a way that you guys are doing it together versus you needing to be up front. You don't need to be up in the front all the time as a leader. What is the old saying that about the wolf pack? The leader of the wolf pack is usually in the back of the pack.
Should be in the back. That's right.
Right. So you give people the platform to thrive and shine. You don't take credit for the hard work they did. It is we did this together, or no, actually Walt did this. He should be taking the credit for it. Right. When you position things in that manner, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be more successful in bringing the team along, and they're going to be wanting to it's going to get competitive at that point. Walt's our supervisor, so we have to make sure we make him look good. So we're going to do everything we need to do as a team to make sure we're doing good. And then if there's one person that lagging, they'll let them know, hey, you either going to get on board or you're going to need to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I've seen a replay, and I'm thinking about some frontline managers that I supported while I was back at Synchrony that did a great job of this.
There you go. So let me ask you, in terms of thinking forward in future outlook of business from an HR and strategic standpoint, what do you see changing in the next 3 to 5 years?
I actually see the model of HR changing again. Gosh, I won't get, hopefully I don't get sued for this. I won't say the company's name. But I would say, now granted, the agile mindset has been out there like very long time ago, right? But at my last place that I'll leave nameless, you saw the HR function start to transition more to a product offering. So productizing HR in a sense, which isn't like earth shattering or brand new or anything like that. But when you productize, you now are bringing something to market, right? So again, you have to remember we're all in business, right? So what are we doing from business? We're either providing some type of good or service. And I saw them start to productize HR. And even for myself, my strategy is more so product size now. So when I think about who's on my customer journey, I think about where's the business that's in the foundation stage. I think about the business that's in the growth stage, and I think about the business that's the phase. And for each of those businesses, I have a package dedicated to those individuals, right? From a product standpoint. And then the second part of that, I would say, is you're probably going to see more of a shift to the fractional model out there. I think it really picked up in the tail ends of 2024. We saw it increase in 2025, and we're starting to hear more people push towards that space. Because again, if you think about somebody like with my skill set, my years of service, it's probably going to cost you over 200 grand plus benefits in order to hire me full time. Not too many small, medium-sized organizations can probably hire somebody at that salary, especially if they don't have over 150 employees, right? Because you really shouldn't be bringing in a full-time HR person unless you have about 85 to 100 employees, right? So for the most part, I think you will start to see more businesses get comfortable with bringing in a fractional HR person, just like they bring in a fractional CMO, CFO, fractional COO, you'll start to see that happen more frequently, I think, in the next couple of months and years.
Amazing. So, what advice would you give someone just starting their HR or people management career today?
I think the best advice that I can give a person is be very approachable, build relationships, not transactional moments. Every encounter you have with someone is an interview on your character. So be careful what you say. Make sure that your actions represent what your intent is. And then I would say be naturally curious, not because you're trying to get a gotcha moment on somebody, but more so because you're trying to learn. You're trying to learn everything around you so you can be one of the most dangerous people in the room.
Mm-hmm. All right. So this has been great, Terrence, and you dropped so many different nuggets. I think we definitely have you
For real.
back, because I think the way that you articulated everything really can help a lot of businesses and even professionals, the information that you gave. If people want to learn more about Wright People Solutions, where do they go? How could they connect with you?
Yeah. First, I would say the easiest way to connect with us is on our website at wrightpeoplesolutions.com. We are very also active in the social media space as well, whether it's on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. But if you're in the Atlanta area, if you have any listeners here in the Atlanta area, I would always be welcome to also meeting for coffee or doing a one-on-one to have a conversation with you. But those are ways that you can get in touch. All of those platforms that I just shared with you, they link to a calendar as well. So you would have direct access to my appointment calendar, and just feel free to give me a shout.
All right. Great.
Awesome.
So before we end this, we always like to play a fun little game with our guests called This or That. You can choose one, neither, or both. And there's 6 of them. So I'm going to start it off, and then I'll let Brian finish it. So,
Okay.
Do you prefer teaching or being taught?
Being taught.
Okay. Do you prefer giving feedback or receiving feedback?
And you said there's a neither or both.
You could say anything.
I would say feedback.
Okay. So getting it or
I'm sorry, receiving feedback.
Okay. And then my last one, if you had to choose leading man and you were a director of a film, would you rather choose Denzel Washington or Michael B. Jordan?
Oh, come on. I would say, depending on the storyline, gosh, I'm going to go with Denzel.
Okay. All right, Brian.
Miami Dolphins or the Miami Marlins?
I am a Miami Dolphin fan through and through.
Oh, you and Walt. Sorry for the shoot. We all in a bad season of Giant fans.
All right. I think he said Miami Dolphins there.
Yeah, Miami Dolphins.
Did you? I didn't hear.
Yeah.
I didn't hear. Okay.
Yeah.
Dolphins.
I had my hands over my face because
You had
I
to
didn't
say
have
it
a
low.
bag to throw over my head. So Miami Dolphins through and through.
Yep.
Oh, okay. Office party or a company picnic?
Because I'm an outdoors person, I would say company cookout. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna throw a bonus one in here because of this. It makes me think of alcohol at the company event or no alcohol at the company event.
While I'm at the event, no alcohol. When I leave, do whatever you want.
There you go.
I had a in-house legal one year made us sign waivers.
Yeah. Well, I think how organizations typically deal with it now, and how I would advise, is do drink tickets, right? Two
So it's
tickets per
limited.
guest. That's it.
Got it. That makes
Anything
sense.
else they have to purchase on their own. like you said, Brian, you probably work with your legal counsel to talk about what liability necessarily looks like. But I'm okay if there's a limit on what the employer is providing to the employee.
Nice. Last one. You or Mercedes?
So neither.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What you got? What's the
I had an unlimited checkbook. I'm going Ferrari.
Ooh.
Ferrari? Goodness
Ferrari.
gracious! You done blew way past.
Or I would say, okay, a little bit closer to taste. I would say probably an Audi.
Nice.
Okay,
Yep.
here we go. Yeah, I like Audi.
Yeah, I drive a Volvo now, but I would say an Audi.
My brother had an A8 one time. Crazy.
Really?
The A8 was crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, you just gotta. It's just the engineering on it. Like,
yeah,
it could go
that
south.
German engineer, right?
Yeah, it could go south real bad with if you are unfortunate enough to have a car that just has a myriad of problems.
Oh yeah, you got to fix it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh heck yeah. No. See, and it's funny and that was it. Thank you, man. We love playing that just to have a.
Oh no, it was great. It was great.
But it's funny because folks, when you come from, when you started from the bottom, now we're here type of thing. You always have friends along the way that are on. Oh, I'm buying this. I'm buying. I'm like, well, I hope you could afford to fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the part I learned. And when you were asking about the Mercedes and the BMW, I know my older sister, she had a Mercedes. And I remember her telling me the story of like when she had to go in and take it for an oil change, the cost would be over $1,000 for an oil change, where
it's crazy.
You know, at that time, I think I might have been driving like a Ford Ranger or something, and the oil changes were like $19.95.
99 Jiffy Lube. You kidding me?
Jiffy Lube, exactly.
All day.
Yes, sir.
Or do it yourself if you
or if you got your two ramps that you can put on cinder blocks and drive it up and unscrew that plug, you good.
Yep. I know.
And all those all get your 5-quart.
Yep. I never got to that point, but I did a lot of stuff on my own. I did the oil change. I left for that. But man, thank you so much, Terrence, for joining us, and welcome back anytime, man. And I think it's a valuable conversation to keep having around people. The people experience the employee experience has become so important. You said something that caught my attention about the 85 plus to get an HR person. I have a buddy of mine that runs I'm not going to throw him out there too much, but helps run a business.
The bus, and make an introduction.
They're at 80. Yes. No, I told him they're at 80 and no, we don't got an HR person. I was like, you need one though. And
so quote of the day is, if you fall behind, run faster, never give up, never surrender, and rise against the odds. Jesse Jackson. All right, folks. Remember to like, share, subscribe, go follow Terrence.
If y'all hear me,
Wright People Solutions.
Y'all frozen on my end.
Hey, do it now. It's going to benefit you. We love you. We appreciate you. And it's like,
there we go.
All right, folks. You will.
Yeah. Thank you.